Hey everybody, welcome to Christ, Culture, and Coffee. I'm your host, Robbie Lashua, and I'm here with my illuminative co-host, Tyler Hurley.
Looking for a new word there.
I was stretching. Yeah, I want to say illustrative, but I've already said that.
That's okay. I appreciate the flattery. Thank you guys so much for being with us on Christ, Culture, and Coffee. We have a very special guest here with us today, Hailey. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hailey is, I don't want to toot my own horn, but you're kind of like our super fan.
I am.
You like this show a lot, right?
I do.
Your mom was telling me you were just devastated when you heard we were going to be changing things up with me moving to STR and stuff.
Right.
But because you followed the show for so long, we wanted to have you on just kind of to talk about how apologetics has played out in your life, how college is going now that you're in college, what you're using apologetics for in college. So we're going to get to all of that kind of stuff. But we start every episode with a coffee tip.
Yeah, that's right. So tell us, what is your favorite type of coffee? Or do you even like coffee? Let's hear that.
So I'm not really a coffee drinker for a couple of reasons.
Right, okay.
So certain like coffees kind of like upset my stomach, you know, gotta be pretty careful. But like I really like frappuccinos from like Starbucks, mochas sometimes. Even like a nice herbal tea.
Whoa. Let's hold on here.
He makes,
Listen, everybody can like what they like. That's okay. We like you still, Hailey.
Yeah, I was going to say, we had someone on the show a while back who doesn't drink any form of coffee. You drink coffee, but someone was on the show a while back who only said that he just drinks hot chocolate or tea, and that's about it.
I'm still friends with him, but I'm a little leery.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
And actually, I was just reading a book about confession this week. So full disclosure here in confession, there was one week on this show where I had a sore throat, and instead of having coffee in my mug,
You had tea.
I blasphemed.
Whoa.
And I had tea in there. I know.
Are you
Hypocrite over
British?
here.
No, I'm not.
Do we not know
Look,
this?
my teeth are straight.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, calm down.
Okay,
Tyler.
okay.
Sorry for all you fans in England. We are not making fun.
Yeah, no, we're not. It just, we like our coffee.
We do like our coffee, and we throw tea
how it is.
into the ocean.
But hey, that is interesting that you at least still like some forms of coffee. So that checks a box in our book.
Yes.
It does.
Awesome.
Well, and frappuccinos, that's your go-to. Those are good. I mean, they are. They're very good.
Yeah.
I like some of those. All right, Hailey. Well, here's the deal. A lot of our listeners have no idea who you are. So let's start out with you telling us a little bit about who you are, your background, what you're up to these days.
All right. So I'm Hailey. I go to the church that you guys go to. I've been going here pretty much my entire life. So I grew up in the church. I would say I became a Christian when I was about 5 years old at VBS. And ever since then, I've just been kind of like growing my faith and stuff. I think I started getting into like evangelism and apologetics when I was in middle school, which is pretty young. But I go to a really good church that kind of just like exposed me to all those things and like really taught me and trained me in that. So right now I'm attending Grand Canyon University. I'm a freshman.
Nice.
So I'm going into my 3rd month, which is really weird. It feels like a lot longer than that.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm just studying, doing work. I work on campus. I'm actually majoring in English for secondary education.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool.
So I plan on being a high school English teacher after college. So.
That's huge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really cool. So let's talk about, because I know you've probably listened to most of our episodes. I've never listened to one of them. It's true. Like, other than to edit, audio and stuff. Because I lived it. Tyler, that's why. Okay. But anyways, you've listened to a lot. And so, like, how has, like, the content and the evangelism strategies and the apologetics on Christ, Culture, and Coffee, how has that prepared you, do you think, for college? Has it prepared you for college? I might be assuming too much.
I would say it definitely has. I already have the answers to a lot of, like, tough questions that people deal with through, like, learning about apologetics and listening to your guys' podcast, which you discuss a lot of details and topics. So a lot of like other college students may have like certain questions or deal with like certain issues, but I'm like, I kind of already know the answers, so I don't really have to struggle with that as much. And then when other people have those questions, I am able to like answer that for them and like kind of explain to them like different things. And even like in my Christian worldview class that I'm taking, like my professor's like discussing a lot of things that I already knew because of the podcast.
Oh, wow.
So he was talking about like the resurrection of Jesus one time. And I was like, oh yeah, 500 women died following the body. Like Cross Culture Coffee taught me that. Like just the different like evidences for like Jesus's resurrection. Like I already know that. So it really like just prepared me to have that like head knowledge of a lot of different like evidences for our faith, and it also that also strengthened my faith even more because I was able to understand like more about God and more about just Christianity. And then also like you guys have talked about like different people's like religions and perspectives, and that has kind of like exposed me to those different types of people. And like when I meet those people, I can be able to see like, oh yeah, like this is what you believe, this is what I believe, this is how we're different, and this is how I can share the gospel with you. And that's kind of what your guys' podcast did for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
wow.
that's cool.
Yeah.
That is so much. Well, and one thing, like, because that is unbelievable. On a practical side, I was wondering about, do you review old episodes? Like, because I wonder about that sometimes. Because, like, I know on podcasts I listen to, like, if I forget, I'm like, oh, man, this guy made a really great argument, and I totally spaced it. I'm going to go back and listen again. And it's just like a resource I use to keep re-educating myself sometimes, actually.
I think sometimes I have, but a lot of things I've just kind of remembered it because
that's awesome.
I don't know,
so you
you
have
guys.
you have a good memory.
Yeah,
like, that's really great.
And also, I think you guys just explain things like really well to the point where like I just like remember like, oh, like this episode they're talking about this, and like just like I don't know, just
cool.
remember it.
Well, that's cool. It's just nice to like that you have sought that out and like looked into this more, because it's actually we've noticed too a lot of people like going into college don't really invest their time into that because you're doing like school like and other things in life like jobs and stuff. So just the time that you put into learning more is really awesome. But with that too, since you've been at school, we were going to ask you as well, what have you been doing in serving the Lord at college? Because we've heard some stuff that's been going on at your campus, if you wanted to share about that.
Yeah. Excuse me. So I've been trying to get involved into more like clubs on campus. There's one called Turning Point USA. They're like a super conservative Christian club.
Yeah.
And they do a lot with like politics and stuff like that. Also, me and a few girls on campus have been trying to start Students for Life, which is a pro-life cool. Organization, and we're going to try to make it a club on campus. And we actually just got it passed
really?
this past week.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's huge.
So we're getting started on that.
What types of things will you be doing with Students for Life?
Yeah, so we're just going to have like club meetings where we kind of discuss different like pro-life topics, like pro-life apologetics. It's kind of like equip people, but also to just educate even people who don't agree with it. Also, I really want to like do a lot of like service projects, helping like pregnant women in need and working at pregnancy centers, like crisis pregnancy centers that is in our town. And we'll have like different like events with different speakers from the organization just come and like speak about abortion, stuff like that.
That is so cool. Yeah. That's so needed on campuses. And somebody who's like, because I've seen people do it, and we need to be proactive with our pro-life views. But I've also seen people be like militant about it. So I think the cool thing you're gonna have to offer is you're kind and you're respectful and you stand for truth. And that combination, I think, really goes a long way with people who we disagree with, knowing we care about them, but knowing we disagree at the same time versus just knowing we disagree with them.
And what's really important about that too is we've come to find through the years of like doing ministry and pro-life ministry a lot, is that a lot of times it's a matter of education, because a lot of people don't there's a lot of people in the church that didn't know a lot of this stuff about the pro-life argument. And I've personally walked people through the sled tests and stuff before, and it completely changed their mind.
You can change
times in
people's
my
minds,
life, I've walked people through that, and it's changed their perspective on abortion. And so, like, just by having that educational aspect on campus and building a culture and a community of that, it really does make a difference. It's not just like an echo chamber of people who all believe in the same thing. It's like you're setting a presence for yourselves, and people are asking, and word is being talked about, and that's the point. That's what's significant about that. So really cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, congratulations on getting that passed.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's gonna do awesome stuff at GCU. I'm sure. That's
I'm
so
excited.
great.
Yeah.
Well, hey, so now we've talked about you're doing great stuff. Good things are going on. You're prepared, but there's always challenges.
Yeah.
So what are some challenges that you have been running into with classmates at GCU? Because everybody who goes to GCU is not a believer, right? There's Mormons, there's Muslims, there's atheists, there's everybody. So what are some of the challenges that you've encountered so far in your first semester at school?
So a lot of like students and people that I've met, they kind of have just like a head knowledge of like God and Christianity, but maybe they don't really like fully believe in it. So like for example, like in my Christian worldview class, they like talk about like the Christian worldview, like Christianity, kind of the basics of that. And a lot of them like still don't know or don't understand or maybe even don't want to. And like that's just like, I don't know, it's really interesting to see like, you know, where I go to a Christian university and there's all these people who aren't Christians and kind of complain about it too. I've definitely seen even some people who just like party and drink, like whether that be on campus or off, like just like living that like crazy college life. And I think a lot of people, they think, oh, I go to college, I don't really have any more accountability, I don't need to follow what my parents say. So they kind of just like go off on their own and do whatever they want.
Right.
I'm not like that, but like it's just interesting to see like those different types of people even at like a Christian university.
Yeah. And I remember when I went, because I went to what's Arizona Christian University now, but it was Southwestern when I went. And I remember like thinking, this is going to be great because it's going to be all these other kids who want to follow Jesus like me. And at that school, they make you sign a statement of, I am a Christian. This is when I accepted the Lord. This is when I got baptized, that kind of stuff. And like, I get in there and I'm like, I don't know if these guys are all Christians.
Exactly.
There was a lot of Christians there. Like at GCU, there's a lot of Christians.
Yeah,
There is.
But it was the same thing. And it was, for me, it was kind of a rude awakening to like, man, I had such high expectations of this place.
Me too.
They're really letting me down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that organization, but it's just people, right?
Well, I went to GCU too. I graduated there. And like that was something too that happened. I mean, I had people that lived on my hall that were doing the same stuff. So it's like, it's everywhere. And it's a part of, that's just the culture that's there. And a lot of times I've even seen a lot of people going from GCU's campus to ASU stuff. And like, that's a very popular thing to do.
It is.
And ASU has a reputation of being the #1 party school in the nation, apparently.
Well, Ohio State might contend with that.
You're right. But you know, that's a debate that I don't care too much about.
No,
so,
like,
whatever.
I know.
But still, it happens, and that's the thing. It's and it's good just to try to have that that expectation of what to expect with people on the campus and what you're getting into. So.
Well, and how do you so let's talk about this for a little bit, because there's people listening who have kids your age, who have people that are going into college that are kids or grandkids. So like, what do you think it was that has kept you from being the type of person who's like, yeah, I'm in college, I'm going to go crazy now, and I'm going to party and do all this stuff? Like, gives people some insights on like how they could prepare their kids well to go into college, no matter if it's a Christian university that has partiers at it, or it's ASU even, God forbid, a Sun Devil.
The Devil's School.
Yeah, the Devil's School,
So I don't know, I just grew up in a really good church that kind of just like trained me super well, and I have like really good parents, again, who trained me really well, and I don't know, I'm just the type of person who like, I kind of like that accountability. I like being on the straight and narrow, and I think like just being a Christian, like you want to like please God and serve God.
Yeah.
So like just like continuing to follow him and like preparing like whether it's parents preparing their kids or the college students like preparing themselves, just through like prayer, like reading the Bible, like actually having that foundation and knowing who God is, and like having that relationship with Him, and really like building off that, and like getting like deep into your faith, having like deep conversations, or even like listening to like podcasts about apologetics or stuff like that. Like I really had like a foundation where like again like I knew answers to hard questions, and I was able to like just have a deeper understanding, because like I was just able to like grow in my faith through like going to church, listening to guys' podcasts, listening to other sermons or other speakers, and just really having a good community too, like whether that be like getting like a mentor, getting like a good group of like Christian friends, and like maybe doing Bible studies, like really just getting involved, like at your church, at your youth group, just with like other good Christian people.
That's so important. I think that's really wise, because I actually just heard a stat. This was crazy to me. Our children's pastor was telling me that he just heard the statistic that the number one an indicator for Christian kids growing up to make their faith their own is to have somebody who isn't their parents also reinforcing what their parents are teaching.
Yeah.
So having that mentor, having that youth pastor, having that person in church who's pouring in outside of your parents, but are also reinforcing the things your parents are teaching. That's like when people have that, it is a huge factor to being faithful to Jesus. So when do you think, like, because your parents raised you in church, right? You're a 4-year-old, you have to go to church.
Yeah.
Where was it, and how did it happen where you kind of made your faith your own, and it's just my parents making me do it, but I'm taking ownership of this?
I think for me, it started in middle school. So Trevor Shallow, he's the high school pastor currently, but back then he was the middle school pastor. So when I went into middle school, he did a lot of sermons, again, about like kind of just soft apologetics, like just like preparing us and teaching us evangelism. And I remember we like did a series, this might have been with Dwight at the time, but we did a series with just talking about like different like religions, and also just I remember Trevor did a sermon series about like 2 Timothy, like leaving a legacy, and like sharing the gospel with people, like wanting to be remembered like as somebody who loved people and loved Jesus. So I think that was kind of what flipped the switch, like in my head, that I wanted to be the person that people would remember who like just loved Jesus and loved others. So yeah, that's kind of when I started like evangelizing to my friends, like in middle school, like 7th grade. Just
was that scary at first?
Kind of. Yeah. I got made fun of a lot in middle school.
Okay, yeah.
But like I just like kept doing it, and just like talking to people about like faith and religion, and not being afraid to have those like kind of hard topics. Like a lot of people are just super uncomfortable with that, but
it's true.
I wasn't, so I was just like opening up the conversation. So.
That is awesome.
That's
wow,
great.
That is so cool. That's so cool to hear.
Yeah.
Trevor's going to be stoked to hear that too.
Oh, I'm sure he will. Yeah, and that's just crazy. That's kind of like that's kind of what it is, right? It's like it's about Christian community and stuff, and I think that accountability is a big aspect of that, by having other people around you who support you and can encourage you, and that I think that's a big structure for it, including like going through youth group and stuff like that. So with that though, this is kind of going into the next like area we're going to discuss was how has apologetics strengthened your faith personally? Because we talked about, broke down how you've made it your own, but how is now, like when you've added apologetics to that, how has it become like, hey, this is really solid and I feel comfortable in my faith?
So apologetics, again, like it definitely has made me grow deeper in my faith, again, because like I had those like answers like to the world and to the universe and like about God, and I wasn't really left like wondering. Like of course, like we'll never be able to know every single thing, but
right? Yeah, sure.
But like once you know like the character of God and at least like who He is, like what He's done, then that just definitely helps. But Sorry, I'm blanking.
That's fine. Yeah, just any ways that apologetics has just strengthened you over the past few years or whenever. Yeah.
Yes. Just
how has having answers benefited you?
Yeah.
It definitely it benefited me because again, like I didn't have like the same struggles that other people did, like regarding like theology. Like I had that strong foundation. I've actually like kind of noticed in like society a lot of people who considered themselves to be like Christians, kind of like go away from the faith and like denounce Christianity. And I really think it was because like they didn't have a good foundation of understanding or like of apologetics, like knowing their faith and knowing why they believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whenever I have like those conversations with other people, like sharing the gospel with them, or like even just talking about like religion, like I'm able to have a good like reason and evidence for like what I believe, and I can explain like why I believe it. Like and a lot of times, like once you know apologetics for Christianity, you kind of are able to better explain why you believe what you believe than like other people of other religions can. Like a lot of people just don't know. Like
they don't know what they believe even.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like a cultural, I must be this because I was raised this way.
So it's just like good to know that like you're not believing a lie. Like I think Paul in the Bible talks about like the if Christ has not been raised, then our faith is in vain. Like it doesn't mean anything if it's not true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's definitely like a good like comforting thing. Like I have all these reasons and evidences and knowledge, which like gives me comfort because I know like I'm not believing a lie. Like this is actually the truth.
Yep.
And other people aren't believing in the truth, and I could share that with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, how does because I'm just imagining, I always try to because I think apologetics, I think about arguing with everybody all the time.
Yeah.
It's not healthy a lot, but sometimes it's helpful. So with people, out there who may be hearing this, they're going to listen. Okay, Hailey, you're an 18-year-old college freshman. You've never got out in the real world. You haven't gone through anything hard in your life. That's why you're a Christian, right? Have you gone through hard things in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now kind of everybody has. I think if you live more than 10 minutes, you've gone through a few hard things. But how has your solid foundation helped you through the hard times?
It just gave me peace of mind. Just a lot of joy. Like the Bible talks about, even in the midst of troubles or struggles, God can still bring you joy, and you can still have that. Joy is kind of that eternal peace. It's not just happiness, which is fleeting. It's always there, even in hard times. But yeah, I've definitely had a lot of struggles. Just a lot of things going on.
Tragedy, right? I mean, all of those types of things happen to all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. But just knowing that God is there, He has a plan for us. He can turn, He can make good things from the bad situations. And he just knows. For me, it's really comforting that God, He knows what's gonna happen, and we can trust Him. Just being able to trust God is super important during those times. And just having that peace
and having reasons to be able to trust Him, right?
Yeah,
because a lot of times people who don't have a strong, solid foundation, like you're explaining, and don't understand the character of God, and don't know experientially, right, a relationship with Jesus. And they go to church, so I'm a Christian, they'll say, but then hard times happen, somebody dies, a bad diagnosis of a disease happens to them, and then the question's what the heck, God? I've been going to church, you're supposed to make my life perfect. Well, and that doesn't work for anybody, right? None of our lives are perfect.
Right.
But that's often the trajectory of people's lives when they leave Christ. That's the point at where they feel the tension and they go, this isn't working out because God's not making me happy, right? But having a firm foundation helps you through those difficult times. Not because they're not difficult,
Right.
But it's not like I'm going to abandon God now because he didn't come through for me.
Right.
It's a mature understanding of how life is. Yeah.
Yeah, like God knows better than I do, and he'll bring me through it, and I can trust in him because of that, and I don't have to like be mad at God. Like he knows.
I've always wondered what people do. So like, you know, like an atheist or you walk away from God and bad things still happen to you because they do. Yeah. Who do you get mad at that point? I've often wondered that. Like, what?
And then at that point, then they
stupid
just
universe.
Like,
the universe
Evolution.
is against me. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. But that kind of leads into the next question that I wanted to ask you about. So, I am an old man, right? I am not a young at all anymore. I'm middle-aged.
Middle-aged.
It's disgusting. Anyway, so I'm not hanging out with college students. I don't know what's cool anymore. I'm stuck in the 90s, you know, all these things. So what do you think? Because you are an insider. Yes. You are on the college campus. You are infiltrating the college lifestyle. You are an indigenous college person, right? What do you believe are the biggest issues that college students have with Christianity in our culture in this day and age?
Yeah, I think kind of like what we were talking about before, like a lot of like college students who like come at least to my campus, they have like kind of like a head knowledge of God. Like they went to church when they were little because their parents made them, or their parents like called themselves Christians, so they just called themselves Christians, and that's kind of like they were Christian by name, and that was it.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of people just come in, like, with their parents' faith. Like, they're still, like, under their parents' faith, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they haven't made it their own yet.
Yeah, they haven't made it their own. Like, they haven't, like, had a deeper understanding or, like, deep relationship with God. Like, it's super, like, surface level. Mm-hmm. Like, they just don't really know a lot about the faith or about like Jesus or anything like that. Like they just say they're Christians because of their parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like even though they're like supposed to be adults, they still say, oh yeah, well, like I was talking to one girl a couple weeks ago and she's like, yeah, well technically I'm a Christian because my mom was, and I was like,
what?
How does that work?
Do they think it's like an ethnicity or something? Or
I guess.
The skin color or eye
like,
color or something?
Well, you hear that a lot.
You do.
Even in other beliefs. Like I've known people who that's something that I've heard a lot with Catholics at school. They would say, well, I'm Catholic because that's my family.
Yeah, that's how I was raised.
Even like a lot of people, they just adapt whatever they grew up with, and that's universal, which is unfortunate.
My good friend growing up, Greg, I'll never forget. He's a Christian now, which is awesome, and he's amazing. But when we were kids, he was Catholic. Mm-hmm. And I'd always be like, dude, you should come to church with me. And you know what he'd always say? Ravi, I'm Italian. I'm Catholic. Like, that was his excuse. Like all Italians have to be Catholic. Anyway, it's so funny.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
He did this with his hands.
Yeah, but I would go over to his house, and his mom would make us peppers and Italian sausage, and it was awesome. So anyway.
Of course.
Yeah. Of course.
That's because they're Italian. That's why.
Because they're Italian.
Why
and
else?
they're Catholic. Yeah.
So that's a good point. To your point, it's like that happens a lot. People fit into that mentality. It's like, this is the way that my family is, and that's the way that I'm going to be.
Yeah, and I think it's like interesting because they're supposed to be adults. But they're like, I'm going to still like just call myself this because my mommy and daddy said so.
Like, but I'm my own person.
I'm my own person. I'm gonna
like at midnight.
Yeah. Like I'm gonna go party and like drink, but I still call myself a Christian because my parents told me to.
Yeah, but it's
because they don't want to think about it for themselves. Really.
But if that's all you have, it's just a thin veneer. It's not going to last very long, right? Because when you get challenged by college professors, you get challenged by other people's beliefs in college, you're gonna go, yeah. Why do I think this? Is it if it's just because my mom and dad or my grandma thinks this, you're not going to stay in that very long. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You got to have better reasons than that. Yeah. So you're saying that's a huge issue you're seeing on the college campus.
Yes.
Just kind of shallow, surface level Christian in name only.
Yeah. And even like a lot of people who may be like a bit deeper in their faith, like have a little bit more head knowledge, it's kind of that cognitive dissonance where they like, oh yeah, I go to church, I go to like chapel on Mondays on campus and all that stuff. but again, I still party and drink and like, but oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but I swear.
Yeah,
or
sure.
like I'm a Christian, but I'm gonna go drink with my friends underage. Like,
yikes. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're going, how does this, like, so do you believe what the Bible says or not?
I know
Right?
it's kind of a confusing
And
like
we
dilemma.
all screw up. It's not
Yeah.
about not messing
Yeah,
up,
right,
not ever
absolutely.
doing anything wrong.
Right.
But yeah, it's openly, like you
Yeah.
said, cognitive dissonance. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? If you say you believe this, but you're doing this, it's really hard for me to believe you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is interesting. That's a
Yeah.
problem. That's a real
it
problem.
absolutely is.
Well, what other issues? Have you seen other things? I know you've only been there it hasn't even been a semester yet.
Yeah,
so-
right, of course.
Yeah.
And you've got your studies and work and, real life to deal with too. But yeah, any other things you've seen or heard that are kind of struggles, issues that people have with Christianity?
I guess somebody pointed out to me like a lot of people kind of just think of Christians as hypocrites.
Okay.
Because like kind of like what you were saying, Robbie, like they like will mess up, but they say like, oh, like you can't sin, like you can't do this, but then they like go out and do it themselves, or they're like just like mean or whatever. Like, so a lot of people just kind of have like a bad view of Christianity from those people that have maybe like done that, like, oh yeah, like you're going to hell if you're gay, or like just different things like that. So I think a lot of people also kind of have just like a bad reputation for Christians.
Well, and that probably comes from these Christian in name only people
Yeah.
doing whatever they want 6 days a week,
yeah.
and then culturally say, well, I go to church and I'm a good Christian.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not translating into your life, and the world sees that. They go, this is hypocritical.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, people have issues when you say you believe one thing and you live completely different.
Of course. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Have you gotten frustrated with that with people? I don't want you to name names.
Oh, sure.
But
Yeah,
with
yeah.
people you've seen in school and stuff, you're like, what are you doing?
Yes, like so much. Like I just have high expectations of people in general. So definitely like when I see like a Christian who's like doing something like they shouldn't be doing, I'm like, bro, like why are you doing that?
That's great.
Like for real.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely get frustrated
Yeah.
with that.
So how do you deal with that frustration? Because I felt the same way in college. Like, again,
yeah. Pray.
Yeah,
like
that's
God,
good.
like give me a better attitude and like help me to like still like love these people and but like also like tell them like the truth, like if they're like messing up or doing something they shouldn't be, and like give me the words to say if I were to tell them like those types of things, or just different things like that.
That's awesome. Just relying on the Lord to help guide you through. Because you want to be kind to people, but you do
Yeah.
want to stand up for truth because
Exactly.
it's best for them to follow the Lord. It's following Jesus is good for us, and it doesn't mean a problem for your life. But it's purposeful and it's meaningful and it's worth it and it's not wasted. That's awesome.
Well, and I see where like that's aspect of it too, is because I've been in your position with that before, and there were times where I felt discouraged because I had some friends at school where it was like one day in particular I had a conversation with multiple people. Coincidentally, it happened to be on abortion, but it was very like all of them were professing Christians. They would tell you they're like, yeah, I'm a believer, but all of them said they were pro-choice, and that just like that really struck a nerve with me. And I was like, I was trying to figure out, how do I manage this? How do I talk to them about it?
Exactly.
Well, and let's make sure we say something clear. You can be a Christian and be pro-choice,
absolutely,
but you should not be.
Yeah, correct. And that's
so it's not like you can't go to heaven with that stupid belief.
And that's something we've talked about plenty of times on the show. We're very firm on that. You can live a terrible sinful life, and we believe you are still saved if you know and trust Jesus as your Savior. Doesn't matter how you live your life, but you should live your life in God's will.
It's stupid not to live
is
according to
stupid.
how God wants.
Absolutely.
There's this guy on the YouTube channel, and he always posts whenever we do like an LGBTQ thing. All he says is like, "There's nothing wrong with being LGBTQ and Christian," or like, "There's no contradiction," or "You can be LGBTQ and Christian." No problem. And I'm like, we're not saying you can't. You're saying you shouldn't. It's bad. It's bad for you. Like I can be a Christian and do a lot of bad things, right?
But that's not right.
Yeah, and that's where it gets, like you were saying, Tyler, like we want to steer people away from things that are harmful or things that will harm other people. And so, okay, so I'm sorry I cut you off with that. You're talking with your friends about pro-life issues.
Yeah. But I think it goes in line with what I was saying. Because that's very significant to talk about here. And that's what we're passionate about is reaching people on that level and making sure that they understand, like, hey, like, we're not saying that you can't be, like, you're not saved if you don't do this. And that's very important. So, but that's kind of where the conversation was going. I was talking with them and it was just saying, like, hey, we as believers should stand up for life, and this is what Scripture says, and walk them through that. And then not only that, it just even from a secular perspective, I mean, of course, your view on life matters, on your value of human life. But from a secular and scientific perspective of the unborn is a human being at the moment of conception, that like it is irrefutable to me, and because it is. So when I'm talking to people about that, it can get frustrating. So. There's times, the story that I'm getting at here is there was a time where I was talking to multiple people about this in one day, and I got really discouraged, and it put a lot of pressure on me. And I think it relates a lot to what you were saying, because when you're in those situations, it can get discouraging. You're like, hey, this sucks. Like, people who I care about aren't lining up with Scripture, and I want them to know the truth, and I want them to understand this. But at the same time, you got to approach that in love and grace, and it can get discouraging. And so, but that's a really cool thing that you're putting an effort into the club on campus. I think that's fantastic, because that's another way for the pro-life issue specifically. Like I said before, like, it's all about awareness and talking about it, and so that's where that's going to make a big difference.
That's for sure. And it's been fun, like, talking to you and hearing these things, because and I don't know if you remember this, Tyler, but when we started this show like 3.5 years ago, over 3.5 years ago. So one of the things I was studying, like, what's good for podcasts and how can you reach an audience, and everything was saying just be consistent and put it out every week at the same time. So we do 4 o'clocks, Arizona time, Thursdays. That's our thing. And we never missed an episode. But the other thing that I was reading about, they said you need to really pick your audience and who should it be. And it should be as specific as possible. Because we're like, well, we're Christians. Right?
Super specific.
But then this thing said get specific, and so
more specific than that.
We made up this character that was our demographic. And it is the female college student who has grown up in the church, wants to make an impact for the Lord, but doesn't necessarily know how exactly to talk to all of her friends about it, feels shamed into not expressing her views, but wants to follow Jesus wholeheartedly.
That's really funny.
That's what we talked about.
He's not kidding. We actually drew like a diagram and
we named it. This is and because if you have a target, and now there's a lot of people listening who don't reach that demographic, but the truth reaches further, right? But we had to have a target, and so what kind of vocabulary are we going to use? What kind of humor are we going to use? Who, we're not targeting 65-year-olds. We're targeting college age girl. That's what we went after. And so it's so crazy to me that like you are, first of all, I'm not saying you don't know how to share it. You know how, but you are like the demographic we were trying to equip.
It's kind of true.
Funny.
I didn't even think about that.
Isn't that crazy?
You're absolutely right. That's what happened.
It's pretty cool. So just really
Super
appreciate it.
And that was years ago when that happened. So
you were just like 11 years old.
I was. I mean, my voice still hadn't changed yet. Like I hadn't hit puberty quite yet.
Whatever. Those were the rough years.
I know, right?
Well, Hailey, anything else you want to share with the audience about apologetics and about, just making your faith your own?
I would definitely say, like, do research and, like get involved, definitely, like, build that understanding and be prepared. Like, whenever somebody, like, wants to talk to you about it or has, like, objections, like, be prepared to, like, talk to them and have those conversations, and like be prepared to like use that evidence in conversation, like explaining to them like the truth of like Jesus and just like the truth of Christianity, like just like be prepared. Like I've talked to a couple people a couple weeks ago, and they're like, like I have an atheist friend and I don't really know like how to talk to them or what to say. And I was like, well, like, have you done like evangelism, like apologetics or anything? They're kind of like, but like it's super scary.
Sure.
So I would also say like just like pray for boldness and like courage. Like when I was like in middle school, that's definitely something that I was like praying for, like, which is kind of weird, but and I'm like still praying for it right now. But just like be be prayerful and like be like ready for those conversations. I kind of like conflict in those situations. So just like I'm kind of always looking for it. So not to say like look for it, but like be prepared for it and be on guard, and like if somebody has an objection, like explain to them like why like your faith is true. And
that's well, see, Hailey, I love this because one of the dangers with apologetics, you know, and because I went to school for it and I studied it for like the last 17 years, like in depth. One of the dangers I've seen with it is it can be a thing where Christians are content just to know it and never to use it. Yeah. And it's that person who's just perpetually sharpening a sword they never intend to use in battle, right? And we don't want to be that. And so I love what you're saying, like, use it. Go out, be prepared to have those conversations. It might be intimidating, pray for boldness, do it anyways. Being scared is not an excuse because we have God and we can pray for boldness.
Exactly.
We do. The purpose of this is to strengthen our faith so we can be good ambassadors for Jesus. Yeah. But we have to do that.
I think definitely like putting like whatever you learn into practice, but especially like apologetics, it kind of just like helps you like have a better understanding of it. Like once you like are able to like teach it, like you can better like understand it and learn it for yourself. Like I think there's just like some like stats or something that talk about like once you learn something, like you have to teach it. Like,
and then you really learn it.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly
I'll tell you, that's why this podcast ended up sharpening me a lot, because I was like, I'm like, I don't know a lot of this stuff, but here we go. Let me get into it. So
it is. Well, the more you teach it and the more you talk about it, it solidifies. Right?
It absolutely does.
And so, so those conversations are actually obviously a witnessing technique and a benefit to the person hearing, but they're a benefit to you as well because you're sharpening your skills of conversation and your skills of recall in apologetics, seeing what works, what doesn't. It's awesome all around. Well, Hailey, this has been so great. This is really fun that we could have you on the show. We could talk about a little bit of coffee and even tea, and then we could talk about college life and just have some of those insights from you and what you're going through at GCU. Just thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys.
We really do appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of Christ, Culture, and Coffee. We'll be back next week with another episode, but before we leave, don't forget, I'm trying to announce this every week. Please support Robbie when you can. If you can,
please.
He needs your support for going on to his next ministry with STR. So if you could please go onto our Instagram page. We have a link where you could donate to him. And please be praying for him too, because this transition is going to be kind of a busy process for him. Yeah, that's true. So he's going to have a lot to figure out and going to need your prayer and support. So if you could do that, please do so. But anyway, we will be back next week with another episode. Thank you for joining us on Christ, Culture, and Coffee.